Tip 4. Does it ace? Ever read a certain phrase or line that stands out to you? You know there's some significance to it, but you're unable to pinpoint exactly what that is. In this situation, try to consider ACE. ACE stands for add, contrast, and emphasize. Does your line add some new important piece of information? Does it add an additional layer of meaning or an additional way of looking at the situation? Or does your line contrast with your expectations of what should be? Does it contrast with something that was previously established in the text? Usually, if you feel, that's strange, or some sort of surprise or shock in reaction to the line, that's because contrast is happening. Or does your line emphasize a certain theme, aspect, or idea in the text? When emphasis is happening, usually it's not presenting a completely new idea, just making the pre-existing ones even louder. So, does it A, C, or E? Let's look at an example. Oh look, it's Little Red Riding Hood. We probably know the basic story well, but let's pretend we haven't read it before, and look at the opening of this version with fresh eyes. Once upon a time, there was a very friendly, dear little girl with golden hair who was loved by everyone in her village, but most of all by her grandmother, who made her a riding hood of red cloth, which Little Red wore everywhere. One beautiful sunny day, she was walking through the woods bringing a basket of snacks to her grandmother. It was then, while she was skipping down a charming path flanked by flowers, that she met a wolf. Little Red didn't know that the wolf was a wicked creature, so she looked at his wide, sharp grin and bushy, curling tail and still wasn't afraid at all. But you know the rest. Which bits of this tale add, contrast, or emphasize? We could say the hood of red cloth adds visual information of what the little girl looks like, what she's wearing. It probably also tells us that she stands out compared to her fellow villagers who are probably wearing more dull and drab clothing. The golden hair might also add information. Golden hair is often symbolic of beauty or innocence in literature, which tells us about Red's character. The basket of snacks tells us Red's purpose for going through the woods. Now, which part of the story contrasts with our expectations? If we've never heard the story of Red Riding Hood before, we might be surprised that she meets a wolf during her walk, especially because the cheerful opening of the story and the beautiful sunny day in the woods has given us an expectation that nice things will continue to happen. Which parts emphasize? Maybe the flowery path emphasizes the beauty of the wood she's walking through and the niceness of the day. Then when she meets the wolf, the wide, sharp grin probably emphasizes the danger she's in and the ill intent of the wolf, which the readers might already have guessed, even if Little Red hasn't guessed. The bushy tail perhaps also helps to emphasize how wild the wolf is. Now this is a pretty simplistic example, so let's look at something a little more complex. Take a moment to read A Backward Spring by Thomas Hardy. Alright, let's see if there are particular lines that add, contrast, or emphasize. The title is A Backward Spring. What are our usual associations with spring? Light, hope, rebirth, life, new growth, especially in nature, after the winter finally ends. But the backward tells us from the beginning that our usual conceptions of spring will be subverted, which is a little bit of contrast too, then. Look at the first three lines. The trees are afraid. The grass is timid. The plots where planting would grow from is gray and gouged. All of these things contrast from our expectations of spring. Nature isn't flourishing for some reason. Afraid and timid further this idea through personification by indicating nature's fear. And what are the reasons for this fear? Gouged by spuds might add a possible explanation, suggesting overly aggressive human farming maybe? And so, there's nothing left and the plots of soil are barren. Or maybe sly, sour winds might also add a reason why nature is scared. Maybe the harsh winter isn't truly over if cold winds are still sneaking around. The sibilance of the line also helps to emphasize the sinister, sneaky wind. So the first stanza sets up a pretty grim picture, establishing a set of expectations for us. But Hardy is going to contrast our expectations again in the second stanza. The snowdrop's face betrays no gloom. The primrose pants in its heedless push. Again, there's personification, but this time nature isn't fearful. There's a bravery and persistence from these little flowers. The myrtle asks if it's worth the fight. That's emphasis, maybe emphasizing things are hard right now. The poem ends by saying that nature overall must try one more time, even though things are hard, and never to ruminate on or remember what happened to it in mid-December. Another piece of the puzzle is added. This suggests that nature has reasons to be wary. It alludes to something bad that occurred during mid-December. We could probably see this as just referring to a particularly harsh winter. Except, the poem was written in 1917 during World War I. So maybe we also have a potential war reading. You can decide for yourself. Maybe go through the poem again, see if there are any possible allusions to war that you can identify. But hopefully, ACE will make the whole process of analysis a little bit easier. And it can then allow us to link our ideas back to wider themes, context, and arguments. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.